Hello friendos and welcome to my 2023 update video to my full MCU ranking I made at the beginning of last year. This video was supposed to come out in November, I had the script written and everything, and then the day after it's finished, they decided to drop the trailer for What If Season 2 and make the video a ranking of not just 6 projects, but 7. The jerks. So now you get a video in, hopefully, January. Who knows? I highly recommend going back and watching the last ranking video, because this one builds on that one. At the end of the video, I will also show the new ranking, because there's also been some stuff that's moved around, namely Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I'm making a video about that at a later date. But anyway, yes, go back and watch that previous video if you want a better reading on the rules. With that said, this is a ranking video. Those are pretty self-explanatory. Let's just get right to it, shall we? Coming in at 7th place, and the last place overall on this ranking, is I Am Groot Season 2. Simply put, didn't need to exist. As much as the first one didn't need to exist, this one was very much a case of they were saying they wanted to focus on quality over quantity, and then they decided they wanted to go ahead and drop I Am Groot Season 2. So, it wasn't as cute as the first season, which, to me, shows that it's losing its novelty. But that one isn't just me. I watched the entirety of this season with my mum, and she loved the first one. And she's one of the suckers that still buys Baby Groot merchandise, even though he hasn't been a baby since Guardians 2. Anyway, she even said it wasn't cute. Well, she said it was cute, but it wasn't as cute. But to me, I read that as the novelty's wearing off, which isn't great when you're only 2 seasons in. Now, don't get me wrong, the Watcher being in the show was really cool. However, my question, and I'm sure a lot of people have this question, is why? Why was the Watcher in I Am Groot Season 2? The only other time he's ever showed up has been What If. Does that mean that I Am Groot Season 2? Does that mean that the first I Am Groot is set in an alternate universe? Does it not? Am I overthinking I Am Groot Season 2? I probably am, but, I still find it, odd. Regardless, though, the visuals of the show, you guys think I'm looking at something over there. That's a lie. My script's actually over here. I'm remembering, because I'm a good actor. That was a tangent. I'm sorry. Anyway, the animation of the show still looks really good. I can tell that they put a lot of time and effort into it, but in my opinion, that time and effort just could have gone elsewhere. Now, you may see that there is a final linking on the screen. That is because I don't remember what they are off the top of my head. Plus, it's just helpful to have that come up and say where it is now on the full ranking, which will include the updated one at the very end of the video. Coming in at 6th place is the show that I'm pretty sure everybody will have as their either least favorite or second least favorite project from 2023. That being Secret Invasion. Now, the reason why I think Secret Invasion didn't do well, outside of the show, obviously in the show it has its own mistakes, and we'll get to those. Alright, but anyway, I think this show went without marketing for far too long. We had the teaser in... when was it? I have to do a quick Google search. We had the teaser trailer for Secret Invasion since 2022 at D23. The actual trailer didn't come out until, before June. That's as much as I know for that. Probably should have done research before this video. Anyway, as a result of not having any marketing for the longest time, it, I think, can go down in history as probably the most forgettable Marvel show. Probably worse than Iron Fist. Now, before I get to the very glaring negatives, let us first talk about the positives. Number 1. I really liked how dark the show was. There was actual murder in episode 2. There was an entire Skrull torture sequence, which I really liked. That probably makes me a psychopath. Oh well. The Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn bromance in the show. One of the best bromances in the entire MCU, I think. Which then brings me to my first of the negatives. Why the fuck did they kill off Talos? Especially after the ending where it's like, oh yeah, Skrulls are now going to be actively hunted. Would it not be cool to have a Skrull we've met and know? Because Guy is fine, but like, we know Talos. We've met Talos. But that's just me. And finally, Gravik. A lot of people do not talk about how awesome Gravik was as a villain. I think that's just because the show itself wasn't great, but I fucking loved Gravik. I think he's one of the better recent Marvel villains. I I don't get why people don't like Gravik. He had such a good plan. And then Fury's the stupid one for not giving him the whatever, it's fine. Anyway, moving on to the very glaring negatives. Why the fuck did they kill off Maria Hill? Not just that, but why did they kill her off in the way that they did? She survived fighting Ultron, and she dies to a gunshot wound. Alright, sure! I think we can all agree on the fact that them teasing that Rhodey has been a Skrull since Civil War was a fucking mistake. I would like them to go ahead and explain those storylines, and if that actually has been the case, and if so, what the hell are they doing with Rhodey now in Armor Wars, if that ever happens. Still waiting, Marvel. Please, just give War Machine something to do. Please. Now, before we move on to my next ranking pick, whatever, I would just like to take this moment to remind everyone that opinions are subjective. You can like whatever you want to like. And in my case, you can hate whatever you want to hate. If you've seen my previous ranking video, you know what I'm talking about. That being said, coming in at 5th place, we have Loki Season 2. Now, there's one thing I would like to say about this show. I thought it was leaps and bounds better than the first season. Like, I actually had fun with this one. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one was they actually focused on the interesting concept of the show, which of course was the TVA. But that was for the first half. And I also like that Loki, a character we've known since the first Thor movie, was given something to do other than I'm a bad guy, but I don't want to be a bad guy. Actually, to be fair, that's kind of not what happened. They kind of did that 180. They kind of told him he has to be the bad guy, and he accepted that. Loki accepted that. Every other time he's been like, "Oh, I'm a bad guy, but I'm not actually that bad," and like, yeah, whatever. But again, that was for the first half. Now, I would like to say though that the negatives do still outweigh the positives here. So let me just get my positives out of the way first. Number one, the whole TVA thing, a lot better. I preferred watching the time cop stuff. I thought that was the more interesting side of it. And also, Mobius got his jet ski. Let's go. You did great, lad. You got your jet ski. Now every fangirl who watched the original show and was like, oh yeah, Mobius needs his jet ski can die happy. Yay! On the topic of characters, Loki got to be a mischievous little shit again. I like it when Loki's a mischievous little shit and not a whiny douchebag. Whiny douchebag's a bit more of a harsh word. But still, when he's not like a whiny, snivelly child. Let's go, Loki. You did it. You managed to make me like you for this show. This is the first half. Now let's get to those negatives that I was talking about. I'm upset that they just kind of dropped the time cop stuff after the 3rd episode. And they went back to, well, the 4th one was fine because the 4th one was still like a happy-go-lucky fun time multiverse story. And then episode 5 happens and they just drop it. They just drop the time cop stuff. And what do? They go back to it being about Loki feeling inadequate again. I'm so sick of that character arc for Loki. Give him something else to do. They do. They gave him God of Stories at the end of the show. I liked that they did that. Because now it gives him something to do. Now he can come back and be like a completely different character. Let's go. You did it, Loki. And while I agree with the sentiment that episode four's ending felt like the ending to Infinity War and the fact that it's very silent, everyone doesn't know what just happened in the tone, but in the execution, not really. Because we don't know these characters as well as we knew the characters from Infinity War dying. So, it's kind of that. And then they kind of just do it again at the end of episode 5. So that kind of feels like, oh, we don't know how to end this episode. Let's just rehash the ending of the last episode. And then, as much as I like that God of Stories is happening and now Loki has something else to do, that last episode went back to the kind of stuff I didn't like in the first season. It very much went back to feeling like the writers thought what they had was the most magical thing on the planet. And it's just kind of okay. And that's how I would describe the season. Better than the first one, but to me, that's not much of a leg up. Coming at number 4 is the movie that I decided to do my last ranking video in preparation for, being Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I honestly don't know if I would say I liked this movie or not. It's in the B tier, but so is Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange is also a movie that I'm like, it's fine, but I wouldn't say I would. If I was given the option between watching it and anything else on this list, even the ones below it I would watch to be like, here's what I didn't like about it. But this one is more of a movie that's like, everything's fine, but nothing's like so bad it's worth talking about, and nothing's like praisable. So let's get into what I thought about it then, shall we? Right off the bat, the thing I can definitely give the movie props for is how it handled Kang. I don't care about the whole joke about, oh, he died to ants, because he didn't die to ants. If you just watch the movie, you would see he survived those ants. He went on to basically. He almost killed Ant-Man if it wasn't for the help of Wasp. I. I'm gonna come back to Kang. I really liked how they did MODOK in this movie, considering I just like my little round boy. I don't know why they killed him off, considering MODOK could have been an interesting character given the fact that he had some sort of like thing with Ant-Man at the end of the movie. But they just killed him off. Speaking of killing off characters, what's their plan for Kang? Now that Jonathan Majors is, well, uh, I don't need to say it. If you're watching this video, it's a Marvel ranking video. You probably know what happened to Jonathan Majors. So, as for the characters that aren't the villains, being Ant-Man, he was fine in this movie. Like he carried most of the comedy, and he did fine with that. But he really could have used Luis. I have no idea why they didn't put Luis in this movie. Like genuinely, like what was so wrong with Luis that they couldn't just bring him back? Like I don't know. As for characters, Wasp, what were they doing with Wasp? Where Wasp wasn't even in this movie. She's called Ant-Man and the Wasp, but Wasp was barely in it. She comes in at like the end and shoots Kang once, and then that's it. No more Wasp. Wasp is gone. A big point of contention that I see with this movie is that people did not like Kathryn Newton as Cassie. I like Kathryn Newton as an actress, but I do very much see where people are coming from. Cassie really was not given much to do in this movie, despite the fact that she definitely was one of their big selling points. Considering in a later movie, they kind of sort of started teasing the Young Avengers, and Cassie's definitely going to be on the Young Avengers. They outright reference her in that upcoming movie. But yeah, most of her dialogue was screaming the word "dad," and she kind of didn't get much to do. I want to see more of her though. Anyway, that's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It's fine, but so is Doctor Strange, and I still wouldn't really recommend watching Doctor Strange if it's not really for a rewatch. One more thing. I wasn't in the script. I just remembered this right as I hit stop on that previous clip. The movie from the trailer was pegged more like a nice little family drama between Scott and Cassie, being like, "Oh, it's been so many years since they last saw each other," and then in the movie they never really addressed that once. That would have been a much more interesting plotline. then it sort of just stopped Kang, since we didn't really know how bad Kang was at the time. It was very much like they were telling us how bad he was instead of showing it. Like they expected us to. I don't know. Kang was still a good villain, but I really feel like the movie could have been better if it was focused on that, and if Hope and Scott stayed in the quantum realm at the end. That really feels like that was supposed to happen, and then they come back in the Avengers movies, but then it just doesn't. So I don't know what that's about. Anyway, moving on to number 3. Yes. Getting the bronze medal for favorite MCU project of 2023, quite surprisingly, is What If Season 2. You would think, if you had seen my last ranking video, that I would place it lower, given that I didn't really like What If Season 1. But I think this time around they had just better what if scenario concepts. The first season wasn't great. Yeah, like most episodes weren't great. Episode 4, everyone goes on about how good it is. But for me, the premise was very lacking and I just couldn't really get into it. As for why I liked this season of What If so much more, comes down to a few factors. Number one, obviously, is the episodes being better what if stories. Like, what was my favorite one this time around? I think it was the what if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper. As much as I'm like someone who's very much like Captain Carter's cool, but like we haven't seen Sam as Captain America since the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I'm kind of sick of her. But I liked that episode just because it was like on a cool Winter Soldier story. As for actual reasons I like the show, references to Shang-Chi and Black Widow, all awesome. I would absolutely love more of that. Like now that Daredevil is fully back in Echo, spoilers for Echo, by the way. I don't know if when this video is coming out, but I've seen all of Echo at this point, so hopefully everyone else has. Seeing the tree, the God of Stories tree, Idrisil, I think that's how you pronounce it, at the end of the season was really good. Like, I really liked that moment, and that's coming from the guy that doesn't like Loki. But now it makes me feel more like Loki might, those characters, including Captain Carter, might actually appear in Secret Wars, which probably wouldn't be a shock if they did. But whatever. I'm about to do a little tangent for every episode of the season, and just like a one sentence review or whatever of each of them. So just skip to a different time, skip to the timestamp on screen to find when, if you don't want to listen to that. But here we go. Summing up my thoughts on the actual season itself, much better than the first. Really can't wait to watch season 3, which is actually really surprising when you consider stuff. Anyway, now on to my random, like, one sentence reviews for each episode. Alrighty, gang. For my tangents, I decided it'd be better to not do the webcam just so I can actually read them off easier and I can just not look at the camera. So, let's just do that. Episode 1 had, which was the Nebula one, had the Blade Runner 2049 vibes. It was amazing to me how much screen time Howard the Duck had. And Karen Gillan as Nebula, once again, very smick. Episode 2, which one was episode 2? Oh, the Guardians of the Galaxy one. It was probably the episode I had the least thoughts on. The ending felt a little cheesy, but it's a comic book show, so comic meets comical. So whatever. I'm fine with it being cheesy, and I don't mind that Avengers 80s Avengers lineup. I would like to see them again. It was cool that Wendy Lawson showed up. That was very unsurprising. Unsurprising, very surprising, I should say. Episode 3 was my least favorite episode of the season. I loved Christmas. The Christmas whimsy of that episode was all over the place. It was dripping with Christmas whimsy. God, I'm reading a script and I'm still messing up. We're doing it in one take. Let's go. And it could definitely be skipped outside of watching outside of Christmas. But Justin Hammer coming back was awesome and very unsurprising. Very surprising. Why do I keep saying unsurprising? Anyway, more Sam Rockwell and something, please. Episode 4 was Mad Max but with Marvel characters, so obviously it was awesome. It definitely felt the most like a season 1 episode, but that being said, it feels like it would have been one of the better season 1 episodes, so I don't really mind. Also, as a Transformers nerd, Iron Man's Sakaran armor transforming into a car, dope as shit. Dope as shit. Anyway, moving on. Episode 5, which was my personal favorite one of the season, being that it was Winter Soldier, but with Steve in place of Bucky. Which I will once again put a target on my back and say, I liked this more than the Winter Soldier movie. I know, I suck. Shoot me. Anyway, seeing seeing the Black Widow movie, as I mentioned earlier, was awesome, and I would love to keep seeing references to the newer movies show up. And it tying directly into 1602 at the end was a surefire way for me to be more hyped about it, since 1602 was the episode I was most looking forward to. And just seeing Elizabeth Olsen's name in the opening credits made me lose my mind. That being said, should have gone the way of Daredevil and She-Hulk and Spider-Man and Civil War, and not have been spoiled ahead of their appearance. Alright, episode 6, Kahori. She's a new character, so, you know, sometimes it's hard to get new basis on new characters, but I'm fine with that. I thought it was cool that not a word of English was spoken throughout this entire episode. And, or besides, like, the ending with Doctor Strange. And I can definitely say it's the most artistically stunning episode of What If they've done. But because she's more of a, like, because she's a new guy, very much was more of a one-shot than a what if. The final stretch of 3 episodes now. Here we go. Alright, episode 7, which I thought would be sucky just when the episodes got leaked. But holy hell, doing the first Thor movie but with Hela having to learn mercy, fucking awesome. And it had direct mentions to Shang-Chi, which, if you saw my last video, was one of my favorite movies of Phase 4. And it's Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett is always a fucking banger when you get her. I hate that she was on Epstein's list. Anyway, episode 8, which was my most hyped episode, being 1602, and let's go, 1602. It was okay. 1602 was okay. It was like really cool seeing what 1602 Avengers would have looked like, but something just felt off. I can't put my finger on what it was. I honestly don't know, but it was still awesome. And I will always take seeing more Scarlet Witch when she is well written. Once again, there will be a Multiverse of Madness video coming at some point in the future. And finally, episode 9, the most episode of all time. One thing I can give the first season, despite it not being my favorite, was that every episode felt like it had some kind of connective tissue tying it together. But this one, not so much. You needed Kahori, you needed Peggy, and you needed 1602. That's it. Other than that, every other character kind of just shows up out of nowhere with no build-up. It felt exactly what like what the finale of She-Hulk was mocking, with the whole like the whole you don't need to have a big fucking fight at the end of your shows, but you know whatever. And I made this comparison. Well, as I was watching it, I said it out loud. This is just what I would do as a 10-year-old playing with my Lego figures. But anyway, overall, What If? A really good show. Can't wait for season 3. Here's the final ranking. Let's move on to second place. Coming in second of my 2023 7 installment ranking is the movie that so many people would probably put last, The Marvels. Why did I like The Marvels? Because it's just leaps and bounds better than Captain Marvel. It is just fun. No, it doesn't feel as much like, holy crap, the world is going to be destroyed. So, sure, they reference that, but it isn't really in there because they don't really treat it like it's that big a deal. So, to me, I didn't really care. I was just having fun. Anyway, let's get into actual reasons I like this. The Young Avengers show. They're doing it. They're doing Young Avengers, guys. Guys, they're doing Young Avengers. They are doing Young Avengers. They're doing Young Avengers. And why do I care so much? Because this movie doing Young Avengers, honestly fine. Every other character build up, Kamala, obviously they're gonna do Young Avengers or Champions or whatever. But I don't care about that. All I care about is that they're doing Young Avengers. Speaking of which, wife! Now that I've gotten my very big excitement moment that I was right out of the way, let's get to the actual characters of the Marvels. Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan, once again, awesome. I love whenever she shows up because it's very much actually feels like a meeting your heroes type deal. Plus, if I had a nickel for every time Kamala Khan was a reference to the X-Men in some way in a project that she's in, I'd have 2 nickels, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. Anyway, Monica, she was fine. Like, I don't really care about Monica all that much as a character. Carol, they gave her more personality. She wasn't just a piece of wet cardboard anymore. Let's go! They won! Now, as for why I think most people would put this movie last on their rankings, and also why I just don't think no one went to see it, I have 4 reasons. Number one, people just didn't like Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel, which to me is a fair point. Why would you go see a movie that has those characters if you didn't like their thing to begin with? Completely honest, completely fair, completely get that. Number two is due to the strike, they were not able to really market the movie as much, meaning they couldn't get the word out there for people to go see it. Again, that's a fair reason. And kind of what should have happened with Secret Invasion. Why Secret Invasion doesn't get a pass for that. Alright, number 3, sexism. Because it's 2023, and yet some people can't accept that there are really cool female superheroes out there that need their stories told. For example, just give Scarlet Witch a movie. Like, she was the villain of Multiverse of Madness, which I will talk about at a later date, but give her a movie. She deserves one. And number 4, people still having that stupid, dumbass idea that the MCU has sucked since Endgame. No, it hasn't. Here are just a bunch of projects that have gotten really good reviews, really good ratings. Notice how you probably enjoyed at least one of these. That's proof that the MCU hasn't sucked after Endgame. Sorry about that. Let's get back on track. I say let's get back on track, but that's the end of what I have to say for the Marvels. Final summary, I would say one of the best things to come out of 2023. But Bailey, it's only number 2. Yeah, we're gonna get to number 1. Shut up. Anyway, sorry, I've been doing this all day, and my brain's starting to melt. Anyway, I think what's the movie? Definitely not perfect. Again, like there are valid criticisms to this movie. If you don't like it for those actual valid criticisms, I get that. But if you're just someone that's like, oh, the MCU is woke now, that's not a valid criticism, my guy. Have you read X-Men? Anyway, whilst not perfect, I would definitely say it was the most fun I had with a Marvel project this year. And it was definitely nice to have some groundwork being laid that wasn't just multiversal stuff. Once again, I was right! Coming in at number 1 for my 2023 Marvel ranking is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you've seen my previous ranking, you would know that the first 2 Guardians of the Galaxy are movies that I think are just fine. I know. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just don't think that those movies are the masterpieces that people make them out to be. But this one though, this one 100% is the masterpiece people make it out to be. So what made me come around to this sudden new turn of events, realizing that, holy shit, maybe Bailey is just stupid? Answer, the musical choices. Some of my favorite musical choices of the entire MCU. Dog Days Are Over being played as the last song of the movie. Ah. Creep being the first song of the movie. Ah. It was just all really good. And the song from Transformers The Last Night's trailer played, and I was like, oh, that's the song from the Transformers The Last Night trailer. And then I moved on because I don't want to think about Transformers The Last Night. Seeing more Mantis and Nebula, being they are my 2 favorite Guardians characters, but then their interactions with each other, that was... this entire movie is a chef's kiss, man. Like, Mantis basically... Mantis yelling dickhead was my favorite joke of the entire movie. I love it when like small mousy characters have such big emotions all of a sudden. And Nebula is just a sarcastic asshole, and I love sarcastic asshole characters. but not Loki, because he's a fucking whiny bitch. The Counter Earthlings, and their practical effect makeups, the perfect balance of goofy and creepy. They were really good. I really liked the makeup on those guys. Perfect. Uh, Whilst it's in the S tier, but despite being in the S tier, there are some faults with it. Namely, what they should have killed some characters off. The fact that all of the Guardians are still alive, and James Gunn is now doing DC, makes me wonder when we're gonna see these guys again, if ever. And now it's just gonna be a matter of time before people start asking, "Wait a minute, Drax is still alive. Where is Drax?" Right? So, that's just kind of a little nitpick for me. I also think that this movie has one of the best endings to any Marvel movie. Again, Dog Days Are Over song. Nah, just. Oh. However, given that I loved the ending so much, it's one of the few Marvel movies I think could have benefited from not having post-credit scenes. I just think that they should have pulled like Endgame, because it kind of was the endgame of the Guardians of the Galaxy team, at least as we know them. So I think that could have been without. I think Adam and Cosmo could have been in the movie more, considering Cosmo was kind of teased and built up over the course of the first two movies. And Adam, he was the post-credit scene of two. He was barely in this. I still liked him. Will Poulter, perfect job as Adam. The guy with the eyebrows really pulled it off. Great work, guy with eyebrows. And as for Rocket, our sweet baby boy Rocket, I really liked his story. Perfect story, perfect storyline. I just kind of wish that he was in the movie for a smidge longer. Because he kind of was out of commission for a while. Obviously, the best storyline of the movie was Rocket, but I would have liked to have at least seen him interact with the other Guardians a bit more. Anyway, that's the full ranking. Now on to the outro. I've done it. I done ranked the entirety of the 2023 MCU slate. Yes, it was only 7 projects. Doesn't matter, I still did it. Thanks What If for making me have to postpone this video. And thanks own procrastination skills for making me have time but just not want to do it. As for the slate itself, there were definitely some lows, being stuff like Secret Invasion, and that's pretty much, maybe Quantumania, depending on how your views of it are. I Am Groot was sort of just a nothing show, and Loki, not my cup of tea, but a lot of people like Loki, so I'm not going to fault people for that. But also, some highs. Guardians, What If, and The Marvels, fucking loved them all. I will gladly watch those again anytime. And because of that, I still remain on the Marvel isn't dead train. Marvel never fell off. Y'all just gave up on good storytelling. To be fair, do they have a plan for Kang? Do they? But with that said, I suck at outros. Let's just move on. Feel free to yell at me about how I'm wrong about Loki in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, homies!